great for surviving. But if you plan on thriving, you're going to have to do the hard work and go to the real feelings that you're busy avoiding and that don't feel good. None of this feels good. Like going to
Mm,
these feelings does not feel good, which is why we spend our life completely avoiding them,
yeah.
right? The miracles start to happen when you get brave enough to go, how do I actually feel? And once you're aware of that, learning how to let yourself feel it.
Hey, welcome to the Bodies Built Better podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Tan, and I'm so grateful you are here with me today. This show is all about human performance. So, if you're wanting to show up as your best self every single day, whether that be in the gym, out on the park, or with the family, this show is for you. I chat with health experts, athletes, coaches, and authors on all the best tips, tools, and strategies to help you perform at your best. We explore the body's incredible ability to heal, adapt, and evolve so you can crush limitations, reconnect your body and mind, and discover your extraordinary potential. And today on the show, I have the absolute honor of talking with someone who's had the most profound impact on my life. Her name is Krista Jane Smith, also known as KJ. She has the most incredible ability to see you and to see the power within you and help you bring that to life. She uses laser fast intuition, the best bits of science based mind work, trauma resolution, and she throws in a bit of KJ magic to get to the source of what's holding you back. She is truly a powerhouse and has helped me through the years overcome my own blocks and barriers and has helped me with my business, with my life, with myself. And today we talk about EFT, emotional freedom technique, what it is exactly, when you can use it, why you should use it. And that is the beauty of Krista. She has an incredible ability of explaining what this is using the science based approach, but she's an intuitive, which means she can really help you see you and help you gain the clarity that you deserve to get through any of the challenges and setbacks that you are experiencing in life. So, whether you have something holding you back from moving forward in your career, or whether you're trying to experience your ultimate potential, whether it is out on the track, the field, the gym, this could be the missing link. And I really encourage you to take everything in that Krista talks about today, apply it, give it a go, and see how profound this could be in your life. So let's dive straight in with Krista Jane Smith. KJ, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Welcome to the Bodies Built Better podcast.
Thank you. I've been waiting for ages to come and chat to you.
I'm so excited because what the listeners don't know is that I've been coached by you for a little while now, and you've made such an impact on my life. You have this incredible ability to see people, really see people, and see everything that they are capable of and all their amazingness that and all the bullshit that we tell ourselves. You can see that too. And you've helped me so much. And whilst this episode is about EFT, emotional freedom technique and tapping, you are so much more than that, and you do so much more. And to start, can you give us a little bit about you and what you do and how you came to be this incredible human?
Where to begin? Well, thank you for your lovely words. It's just been a joy to be on the journey with you. And I guess to answer your question, how did I come to be where I'm at? Oh my God, where do you begin? Well, like my own childhood shitstorm of a story. Probably pushed me to be everything that I am now. And I think, all of those harder experiences in your growing up kind of bring you to the opportunity to step more fully into your truth and your power. And I guess that's what my work is really about. And, like you said, I'm good at calling people out on the bullshit, but hopefully in a gentle, kind, loving way. Because I do believe, we all have this incredible ability to create what we want in our lives, but it's our story, it's our past that kind of shapes whether we are able to step into what we really desire, or whether it's the very thing that, all these struggles that we've had, if we allow them to define us and we allow that to become the story we tell ourselves, then it really is a framework for kind of more of the same. So for me, how did I get into EFT specifically? I was actually well, how far back do we go, Jackie? I'll start with, I was living in a ski resort in Canada, and things were really good, but there was this like underlying kind of, I guess I was depressed. And looking back now, I was probably anxious. I wouldn't have called myself anxious, but I think I was a bit depressed and anxious. Anyway, so I started seeing this psychologist, and she used EFT, and it profoundly changed my life when I started using the technique. So I'm also quite intuitive. I guess that's one of my little superpowers. So at that time, I had started doing intuitive readings. I'd found like a way to use this very strange gift and use it to help other people. But what I realized was, after a while, I mean, I was very fortunate to be good at it, and I had a good following. But what I realized was people would just come back and ask me the same question 6 months later. And I just got tired of people saying, when am I going to meet the man of my dreams? Or, am I going to get money? Or it was just like, well, no, because nothing's changed. And I realized that just telling people, here's what you can expect coming up for you, the only reason any intuitive can ever tap into that kind of thing is based on your energy and your feeling and your thinking of right now. So it's like I'm highly empathic. That's what makes me good at the intuitive part, right? So I would just tune into someone's energy and where they're at. And then it's like, okay, well, based on this, you can feel into what is coming for them. So what I realized though was that it's incredibly like disempowering to tell someone what to, like, here's what you're likely to experience, because it's just based on their past. So what I started to do was use my intuition to find what is actually blocking them from creating what they want. So whether that's the relationship or the money or a business or an increase in a change in their performance in some way. So I started to really kind of hone in on what has happened in their past that is preventing them from stepping into this. So once I started to use my intuition for that part, and then I started adding in tapping, it was remarkable. People started getting these really incredible changes in their lives. So after that, I started seeing these results, and I just became obsessed with EFT basically, because I was like, okay, wait, it's changed my life. I'm watching these people change in front of me, and they're no longer asking these questions because they're empowered and they feel like they can change their life. So, and then of course down the track, then you start to see the results of their change in energy and their change in thinking, and then their life starts to change. All of a sudden they're with the guy, they're making the business, they're making the money, their performance has started to change. So yeah, so that's what happened. I started to use the EFT, and then I got obsessed and did all of the trainings and eventually learned how to teach other people how to do EFT and became a clinical practitioner.
Incredible. And how many of those stories do we tell ourselves? There's just there's just so many. And I have to, I don't know if you have picked up on my energy today, but I did some tapping before this podcast.
We both did.
And it really does for me, and specifically for today, just feeling a bit lighter, which is nice, and a bit clearer. It just makes such a difference.
I did the same things. Like, I start to get excited. I'm like, oh, okay, 15 minutes, like getting all excited. And the more excited I get, the more my heart rate changes. And then I'm like, wait a minute. So I use EFT for focus as well. Like, just, okay, take a second, calm the body down, do a little bit of tapping, just so that my brain works more effectively before I even jump into something where I need to use it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same, exactly. Oh, and I find that my brain, yeah, needs to not be thinking on all of the things because
Yeah.
I'm always in my brain.
We need to have open.
Yes. And can you tell us what, those who are wondering, what is EFT?
I know it sounds like, what did someone say the other day? Electronic fund transfer. I'm like, oh, not that
Yes.
one.
That's exactly, I was telling someone about how I was going to talk to you and about EFT. And he's like, what,
I didn't know
like
you were in the
to get
banking.
money? What do you mean? Please explain.
Yeah, so EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, like with an S, there's multiple. And to be honest, it is the fastest way I have found after looking for 20 years to change your life. It's strange and fairly new. It was only really kind of created around the 80s, and it's remarkably effective in changing the way we feel and creating emotional freedom. So I guess technically, clinical EFT is an evidence-based practice that combines elements of exposure and cognitive therapies with the stimulation of acupressure points at the same time. So, what the heck does that mean? So, it's kind of like a cognitive, energetic, somatic modality. That really just means it's all about the mind and the body, which is really exciting. It's very kind of like East meet West, which we've kind of had Eastern philosophy for a long time, a really long time, like thousands of years. And then Western philosophy, which is very mind based. So we've got one more body based, one more mind based. And then they've started to come together, which is really when things get interesting. And we're putting the two together. And we use it to reduce negative thoughts, becoming more emotionally regulated, changing destructive patterns, changing your beliefs and cognitive constructs. So, yeah, I guess it's quite based on Chinese medicine and the acupoints, so or meridian points on the face and upper body. You look absolutely ridiculous while you're doing it. You really truly do. I've had like, fully grown multi-millionaire CEOs come in or big. I had one guy once who was a drug dealer. He was huge, this massive, big, muscly guy. He's just like gently tapping on his hand and his face and his skin. And it was the most, actually it was one of the most satisfying sessions I think I've ever had, to watch this man peel back the layers and reclaim his baby self. And it was truly amazing. I mean, he came because of it was anger management, to be honest, and then got back to this unbelievable place where it was just like you saw this huge muscly guy just kind of melt into, and just like this softness, and uncovering all these reasons why he had become such an angry person, and turning off the brain's response to all of those. And yeah, his life really, it was unbelievable to watch how his life completely changed. So anyway, we are down a rabbit hole here.
But I really love that rabbit hole because I think, as soon as you say, this big muscly guy and he starts to soften
Yeah.
and calm, I feel like people, or maybe more so men, can look at that and go, well, that's weak. You got to stay hard and strong.
Yeah.
But really by doing that, it has changed his life.
Oh, profoundly. He's so much safer in who he is. It looks like when you're angry that you're tough and you're protective, and it's like it's only hiding a deep vulnerability that we're constantly running from. And that is like every person can take that on board. We are born this kind of like, soft, like expansive, surrendered little self. And then we start having experience, and every experience, and we have these experiences that are either kind of, as a baby, are either teaching you that yes, your needs will get met and you are in fact safe in the world, or your cries don't get met and you don't get the connection and the safety that you need. And whether that's as a baby or as you get older, we just have these experiences that either affirm connection and safety, or they have us believe, because we didn't have the resources at the time of that incident, whatever it might be, when you got humiliated in school, or your father left, or you watched your mum and dad fight and it was abusive, or whatever the moment was. And it doesn't even, this is crazy, is it doesn't actually have to be a like massive trauma. It can be just these smaller moments where we didn't feel safe. We didn't feel supported. We didn't feel the love. We didn't have what we needed in that moment. And if we don't get that often enough, then we start to build these protective mechanisms to make sure that we never go back to that feeling. Right. And that's what I mean by that. We become tougher and tougher, or, we start operating in a certain way where perhaps we're more inclined to really plan out our future, and we're very obsessed on exactly how things are going to happen. We become more controlling, or perhaps we focus on controlling our diet, or we go into avoidance. We're more in shutdown, where we just don't talk about feelings. We just pretend that we don't have them, which is ridiculous, because every single human is a human being, and we are feeling oriented. Like it's who we are. So it doesn't matter whether you're male or female, you will be affected by your experiences. And depending on your conditioning and the amount of resources and support you had through your life will tell you, well, yeah, that's how we form our beliefs, really, about who we are in the world, and what is really possible for us. So it's the story we've created. It's not, and it may have been true in a moment, but what we start to believe is that what we experienced as like a 5-year-old is now what we believe about the rest of the world. Right. Okay. So, let's say you fell over and you had this horrible accident, and someone just told you you're fine. You're whatever. And that you just get up, but no one comes to your need, and, no one looks like they care. And in that moment, you start to believe no one's there for me, or it's weak to be hurt, or, there's 1,000 things we could decide in that very impressionable moment where we had emotion come up. And if we had emotion come up and we had support, or we had been taught the resources to regulate those emotions in that moment, the beliefs that would have been formed would be completely different. And that's the problem, is that in those moments, we didn't have what we needed to have the emotional support so that we could actually process the emotional charge that comes up. If we can process emotional charge when it comes up, we stay big and expansive. And like the world is your oyster, you can create anything. But the more of those experiences, adverse childhood experiences that we have, and we can have adverse childhood experiences, that's okay. It's when we don't have the support and connection, or we haven't been taught how to regulate, that it becomes a bigger problem kind of, later in life. And it doesn't just apply to, the way we walk through life. It applies to your relationships. It applies to your ability to make money. It applies to your ability to have a really fulfilling sex life. It applies to everything, your level of health in life. It's just, all of these, basically 0 to 8, is so impressionable. And as you get older, unless you are consciously kind of looking at your responses and reactivity in life and where you're finding the stress and resistance, if you don't use that to inform you about what's really going on with you and go deeper and find out what do you really need in this situation, you'll just use your default mechanisms to keep avoiding the pain. Right? So it's either we're kind of moving away from it or toward it. And honestly, as adults, the older you get, the harder it is to stay open. It's kind of like, we're kind of like I always think of it as like, it kind of seems like bright and light to me as babies. And then as these experiences come on, we kind of get kind of more and more tight and contracted. And that's why it can be really hard when you kind of start to consciously try and create things differently in your life, whether it's, you want to increase your athletic performance, or you want a relationship in your life that you've never had, or, you want to make more money and you haven't been able to make money before, or you've got to go and look at like, what part of me says this isn't possible for me? Where did that come from? And then what does that old part of me really need? Gosh, we have gone down a rabbit hole.
It's a good one, because these questions can be so confronting. And we don't, I certainly didn't know that could you call it baggage? I had stuff, right? Yeah. So I didn't realize until I guess taught by you to actually question why I'm feeling what I'm feeling and what that meant. And it's so funny. I actually had a conversation with someone the other day about asking questions. And for me, asking questions is like it's a bad thing. You can't ask questions because that reveals how dumb, this is what I'm telling myself, dumb I am. I'm like, where the heck did that come from? And I remember a time in primary school. I was trying to ask a question, and the teacher, I know obviously looking back, it's probably wasn't me, but she was a bit frazzled in the moment. There was a lot going on. And she just like kind of yelled at me and sent me away. So that quite traumatic, scuttled away. But I thought, well, yeah, mate, that's where why I don't want to ask any questions.
Isn't that amazing? And this is the thing, I think people kind of like think, oh, it has to be something really big. Like it must have been a parent that died, or your family broke up, or you had an illness, or you were abused, or something. People perceive it as it has to be a really big trauma, which it can be, but often it's these little moments. But it's these moments where and perfect example in your story where you had a huge surge of emotion. Something happened
Yes.
and that created a huge surge of emotion in your body, and you didn't have the skills to regulate it. And what your brain then told you was, there's something wrong with you. Rather than if you had someone come over and go, oh, Jackie, are you feeling really, maybe you're feeling really embarrassed right now because you don't know the answer. That's okay. It's okay to feel embarrassed. But we're not, especially children of the 80s. The children of the 80s and the 70s will definitely recognize this pattern as like, you're all right. You're all right.
Get on with it.
Get on with it. Right. Where we were, I mean, look, they did the best they could with what they had. However, they weren't particularly good. They were really focused on meeting our physical needs, right? And it didn't leave a lot of room for. And plus, the ancestry didn't say that. Maslow's hierarchy of needs doesn't say meet the emotions first. It says get a roof over the head. Once that's sorted out, maybe we'll talk about food. And now we're at this point in our evolution where we've got houses, and we're so ahead of our 300 years ago ancestors, that we have a lot of these needs met, and we are able to reach this whole new level of evolution where we're starting to look at emotional needs and how once we get a handle on them, we really can consciously shape our life.
Absolutely. All right. So we've gone into some of the benefits.
Well, okay. So what we were talking about actually, I think, was the meridians. And so it's strange, like you're tapping on yourself, right? So we're actually just doing these gentle little taps on the hand, face, and body, upper body. And those meridians are now, as I said, that east meets west kind of thing. 2,000 years ago, Chinese medicine masters were all talking about the meridians, but science is actually just catching up. And there was a recent study by Harvard, and I mean really recent, that's just come out, that now proves that meridians actually exist, and that these little vascular points that are the meridian points, when stimulated, actually do affect the amygdala and the hippocampus in the brain. So, and for anyone that doesn't know, those two really affect your stress response, and the limbic brain, and forming those beliefs and whatnot. So, it's really cool because the study proved that if we stimulate those meridian points, the amygdala will deactivate, and it does so really quickly. Yeah, I know. It's so exciting. It's really cool. I've been doing this for a long time. And at the start, it was just like, I was just going off what I was seeing in my practice, like watching people like, oh my God, it worked. Like people would come in after, a week or two later, and they're like, oh yeah, everything's changed. It was just miraculous. So for me, I had this evidence coming through that kept me going. But for some people, they really needed the science, and it's really, really exciting that the science is finally catching up, and affirming what for 2,000 years. The
Exactly.
the masters have
They
been.
already knew.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really, I mean, on that, there's been over 100 randomized studies and 50 randomized control studies, 5 meta-analysis. There's so much coming out. And actually, there was one in particular that just will blow your mind. That was a landmark study by Maharaj on gene expression. And it showed that after 1 hour of tapping, 72 genes changed expression. Like, what the heck? It's so exciting because I'm like, I knew it was working. It was measured through blood tests. So what it really showed was that some genes were downregulated or turned off, for example, like inflammation or cancer suppression, and some genes were turned on or upregulated, like immunity, downregulating the stress response or tumor suppression. It influenced synaptic connectivity. It affected male fertility, UV damage, insulin regulation. I mean, it's really cool. It's just like, oh my God, wait, you're talking to me after 1 hour? I mean, until recently, and the very new study of epigenetics, we didn't even know that we could change genes and not change the genes, but change the upregulation or downregulation of them. So, I mean, that's just really cool. And there's another really cool one on cortisol production. It was measured by saliva activity. I've got to think of this one. I'm pretty sure, again, it was one session of tapping, an hour, let's say, the cortisol production went down by 39%. Like, what? Yeah. So it's really, like the basis of the whole thing is really about changing your stress response. When you change we know what stress does to the body. Like, we've been told this for years and years and years, but honestly, it's not just what it does to your physical body in terms of your health, but it also relates to everything that you do. Like, if you're an athlete and you're wanting to change your performance, let's say, you're like, okay, I'm going to compete in this race, and I want my performance to be better. It is all about the stress. So yes, we could look at the stress that is induced in recovery. Okay, we've stressed the body physically. We can look at reducing the stress in the body and quickening our response time in recovery phase. We could also look at what's going on in the mind. When I think about that race that I'm going to do, and I know that I want to improve, what is my mind actually saying about this? Well, where did you get that from? Maybe your mind says, I don't know if I can do it. Didn't work last time. And then your mind is actually recalling a memory from like way back when you failed at something and no one came in and said, don't worry, it's just this one thing. If you have this resource, you can do better, right? But you didn't have that resource. So you started to believe that I just can't do it, right? So then we either go into avoidance, or we tell ourselves that we can't do it, or maybe we go into a pattern of self-sabotage. Like, we start the training, we go at it really hard, and then we quit just before we get the results. Right? And all of that is all stress based. Right? Stress from the current situation, physically, emotionally, what is happening in your mind when you think about it, all the thoughts that come up, all these past experiences. So EFT really is all about kind of starting to change the stress response as you recognize what your mind is telling you about the current situation, kind of based on the past. So we're working on the present stuff, but it always goes back to the past.
Yeah. And when this athlete is feeling these things, is it something where they need to do it in that moment and then continue doing it? So for example, I have clients who've come in and they're racing a race. They're really nervous about it, but they've raced it before in previous years, the exact same race, the exact same course. They're doing the training for it.
Sure.
Their times and everything's going really well, but they've got something, for some reason they're nervous about it, whether they've got higher expectations, they've got a quicker race time that they want to do it in. Should they be tapping in that moment and then the lead up to the start line?
Oh my God, the whole way.
whole
The
way.
moment you even decide, I call it like an up level in your life. So the moment you decide that you want to change something, you're intending an up level, right? So my intention is to, let's say, win this race. I've done it before, but now and now you're coming up and you're nervous about the race. All right, my intention is I want to win that race. You're asking for an up level. So the only reason I'm not there is because there's things that I've felt and things that I've believed that have prevented me from getting there before. So something has to change, right? We have to uncover something. We have to unlock something within us to be able to just meet that new place, that higher up level, that new place that, winning the race, let's say. So yeah, so what I would say is anytime you make a decision about, yes, I want to change something, start tapping, right?
Yeah.
You want to start asking yourself, well, what do I think about this? What do I feel? What happens in my body when I think about that race, right? What am I telling myself about it? What am I scared will happen? What am I scared won't happen, right? We just start this line of inquiry. You can even just like tap and talk about it, and your body, like the stress response is going to start to change in your body. Yeah. So I would say,
Amazing.
yes, tap when you decide to, you have the new goal, tap then. Tap anytime you feel like, oh, I don't know if I can do it, or anytime, okay, the nerves kick in, yes, tap then. Tap during recovery. What you do is really, this is one of the general rules with tapping is you start where you're at, right? And the way you do that is go, what's going on with me? Well, my heart's racing. I'm freaking out. I'm really nervous. So we tap and we talk about that part until it's like an onion, right? So you tap and talk about that part, and then it kind of peels back a layer and exposes something else. Well, what's really going on? I know those are the physical things, those are the symptoms that are happening, but what are you thinking? Like, what are you telling yourself that's creating this physiology, right? I'm telling myself I'm not good enough, or I can't do it again because this is the third time. I'm telling myself I'm older now. I'm telling myself I haven't trained hard enough. I'm telling myself, oh, the people are better now. They're younger than me. Whatever it is you're telling yourself about it, it's just a story, but we need to acknowledge it. So EFT is different in that a lot of, kind of coaching, mentoring type situations are telling you, they're just like, no, be positive. You can do it. It's like, no, stop overriding how you actually feel. The fastest way to the breakthrough is to really honor what's going on. What are you actually telling yourself? How do you really feel about the situation, and honor those feelings? When you do that, your system will regulate. Once your brain's regulated, it works so much more effectively, right? The synapses in your brain change, your respiration, your whole body can change. Everything just operates on a much better level, and you become just more superhuman.
Superhuman. Yes, I was going to say that. Man, and this is so awesome.
For what you're capable of,
yes,
not what you've been conditioned into.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that. And I love that invitation to just inquire, because there's so many times, and I've felt like it myself, where I've been in this rut, and I tell myself I don't know why. It's not like I planned on feeling like shit, or there's something coming up that I don't know why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. But to just to even acknowledge that I'm feeling that way,
instead of
to go deeper.
Yourself and exactly. Going, no, come on, get up, get into it, get happy, work harder. It's like, stop overriding your feelings. It's like, it's such a survival mechanism. Great for surviving. But if you plan on thriving, you're going to have to do the hard work and go to the real feelings that you're busy avoiding and that don't feel good. None of this feels good. Like, going to these feelings does not feel good, which is why we spend our life completely avoiding them, right? The miracles start to happen when you get brave enough to go, how do I actually feel? And once you're aware of that, learning how to let yourself feel it. That's a bit of a brain breaker, because for people, it's like, oh yeah, that's not such a big deal. No, it really is. When you get down to the practicality of it, it's like, wait a minute, how do I actually feel? And then really creating enough safety within yourself to really feel what is there without making it mean something. Because what we usually do is feel it and go, oh, well, that means I'm weak, or that means no one will love me, or that means it's not possible. Whatever it is that your brain tells you about it, it's like, just feel it without making it mean something. And that's a hard thing to do if you haven't learned how to do that, if you haven't been taught how to do that, especially as a child, or if as an adult you haven't learned how to do that. Sometimes you need external support to be even able to have someone hold the space enough for you, for you to be, get comfortable with even feeling what's there.
Yeah.
Some people, it is so overwhelming. There is so much, let's call it baggage stuff, pain from the past, that it is so overwhelming, we will shut down. So, sometimes it is really important to just get that external help. Yes, start the inquiry, but if you get to the point where you're like, no, can't even, call for help. Like, go and seek external support on it. And as you start to develop those skills of learning how to feel your feelings and, using the tapping to kind of regulate them, like, life and your brain and opportunity and potential really starts to open up.
Yeah, absolutely, which I've experienced. And yes, I was one of those people that was scared to, because there's a reason we don't want to go there, right? We don't want to feel those emotions. They could be really.
Oh, Jackie, that woman that I told you about, the psychologist that I went to see that was doing the tapping, my very first session, I tried to call her half an hour before and cancel. And she was like, oh, yes, that's fine. You still have to pay for the session. And I was like, oh shit. Fine, I'm coming. I was bitter about it. Turned up and she asked me, she was like, what's the scariest thing you could find out today? And I was like, where's the bathroom? I vomited. I went into the bathroom and I vomited. Such a rejection of the feelings that were sitting right there. And she was like, all right, this is great.
Perfect. You're right on track.
That may have been a little bit too intense for my system to handle that question at that point. Maybe could have used a little bit of a, come off the gas a little bit. But, it was groundbreaking for me. After one session, I felt completely different. Wow. And I only did that, that vomit thing once.
I vomited once.
Decision to go into it rather than to run from it, which I had done, run from it and survive it. I had survived all of these feelings, up until this point. And this was the first time I ever really had this external support to go in there and look at what was actually there instead of just being, on the run.
Yeah. I'm really interested to know, the physical manifestations of suppressing all of these feelings.
Yeah. Name any physical thing that is going on in a body. It's like, it's all goes back to old stored stuff. And it's really just a matter of, get on this journey of curiosity, like, whatever your physical manifestation that's coming up is, to start to talk to it. Like, ask it what, or be with it, be like, well, how does that actually feel in there? Oh, it's tight. I've got a shoulder injury myself right now. Like, what's going on in there? It's like, how does it actually feel? It's like I spend all this time kind of avoiding it. It's like, no, wait, just stop for a second. What is the feeling? And if you tapped at the same time as acknowledging the feeling, and then you started to get into it, when did this start? Oh, I know when it started. It started when I had my second baby. Okay, that was a tough time. Okay, well, what was going on then? I felt really isolated. Okay, well, what, and then you go back to these old memories and we start to regulate all the emotion that wasn't able to be regulated at the time because I was deep in survival. And, there was maybe certain needs that weren't being met, and starting to uncover, well, what did I need at that time that I didn't get? And how does this injury really serve me? Like, how is having it now helping me? Right? Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, really limits my ability to take too much on because it was too much before. It's like, it stops me from carrying more of the burden or the responsibility or whatever. It's like, it's kind of there as my friend. I hate on this shoulder all the time, but it's like, hang on, there is a part of me that kind of wants this to be there. Does that make sense? It's like, it takes a lot of consciousness to be able to inquire like that, which is why having, a clinical practitioner to support you in that way is so helpful, to help, kind of guide the process, not to tell you, that is a very different process, but to guide you to ask the right questions and to support you to sit with it until you hear the answers. Because miraculously, your body holds all the answers, right? It holds the whole story. Every moment from your conception, your body is holding the whole story. The parts that are free and the parts that are still stored. And the longer that energy is stored, it starts to create counter patterns in your life, right? It might be stored in your body, but what are all the protective things that you do in your life to avoid ever feeling that old stuff from the past? So, big topic here, people. Big topic.
It really is.
I guess the thing to take away is that, like, okay, I'm an emotional human being, and there may have been times in my life where I didn't get all of my needs met, and there's old emotions sitting there. And as they sit there, I have to avoid them in some way. So if I want to feel more free, if I want to feel more open, if I want to feel more abundant and in flow, then I got to get deeper into what's actually there and stopping me.
The body is an incredible machine. And I remember last year when I went to Sydney, I took 6 months off of work, and I'm very grateful and lucky that I was even able to do that. But I remember it was almost as soon as we got to Sydney, every single day I would wake up and my feet aching, so much pain. And I'm like, I haven't even done anything. Like there's no fractures, no broken bones. Like there's no reason, I exercise, but like no more than usual. And it was funny because it was this year recently when I was doing, your coaching program, someone else brought this up.
Right.
And you answered it as like, you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was, you're trying to move forward, but you don't know the direction or what's the purpose, and you're having a bit of trouble with that. And I'm like, holy at that time I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know how to move forward. I didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to go, who I was going to be, because I so much defined myself as a massage therapist and being able to do all the physical stuff that comes along with that, and the movement side. And
Yes.
that was profound.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing how that physical thing can take you on a journey back to, wait a minute, what's really going on here is I'm there's fear. I don't feel safe changing my, career, my identity. And it's like it comes back to that, okay, I got to regulate those emotions and create more safety for me in this situation now. And as safety and connection are created, then it allows us to open again. The energy starts to flow, the ideas come, the fire starts to come back into your system, and you start to get that clarity, and you're able to move again. That stuckness is really like at whatever level you're stuck in your life, whether it's like, in your physical life, like, oh, I just can't get motivated, or like, in your life where you can't get motivated, or if it's stuck in your physical body, like maybe your digestion stuck. It's like, what is really going on? Like, what is being held in this area that, really needs more safety and connection to be released?
Absolutely. And yes, stuck is such, I mean, for me, that word resonates so much. And I just have this image of it, whether it's a dam or river, and it's just being blocked and it's just building.
But that's
Where is this going?
true though, like we get to be adults, and then it's like unless we are constantly like unclogging the dam
Exactly.
consciously and consistently, then the dam just like gets to a point where it starts overflowing. It's such a great analogy, Jackie. It's like every experience you have that's unresolved, or the emotion that didn't get regulated, and the beliefs that form, it's like you get another piece of junk in the dam, right? Like you're either putting stuff into the dam, or you're taking stuff out, and it's either happening consciously or unconsciously. And the best part about that is that we get to decide that now as adults. And that's the difference between being an adult and being a child, where we didn't have control over any of that. It wasn't up to us.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just want to come back to, I guess, the physical manifestations or injuries specifically for athletes, because it's funny. I've had clients come in who will get reoccurring injuries. Now, obviously, there's a lot going on the physical side of things, whether there's weaknesses and laxities in joints and whatnot, and things need to be done around that. But would you say, I guess, on that EFT level or that emotional level, is there something else that could be happening behind the scenes or deeper?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really hard to say exactly what without going into it because
Sure.
it's not, to me it's not a blank, like, a blanket rule of like, oh well, if it's that injury then it means this. It's like, but what is going on in your, but what is held there? What is the energy or the emotion of what is held in that place? Or, why is this repetitive? What keeps happening? Or when did it begin? Like what else is going on? And that can be things from your life experience. It can be ancestral trauma. It's like it can be cultural trauma. There's so many kind of aspects that it could be coming from, that the only way to really find out is to go on a line of inquiry with someone, or to even to construct, ask different questions that will help them get back to where did this actually come from, or why is this here, or what does it really, you can even just ask yourself, like, what does this part really need? What does this injury really need? What do I really need in order for this to be completely healed?
How often do we not give ourselves what we need?
Oh, I don't know. Me personally, all the time.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like we're so default at this. I mean, my age, I'm over 40. So everything is so unconscious, and, you're running these kind of tapes, these default just ways of being. And, it's like, if you haven't really had it modeled, or it hasn't been safe for your needs to be met, or they weren't met as a child, it really, yeah, it's pretty common for us at some
Mm,
level to not have had a physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual need met at some point.
yeah,
And, and as we said, as an adult, it's just all about going back and really working out what that is and starting to give it to yourself.
yeah, exactly. Earlier on, you said through this incredible study, they did 1 hour and this changed gene expression, which, by the way, if that isn't enough to just get you starting tapping right away, I don't know what is.
Right.
We don't have to spend an hour doing it though, right?
I mean, you can get relief. Like if you're really tuned into your problem and you're really focused on your feeling, you definitely can move. We measure everything in what we call SUDS, subjective units of distress. So that's like a measurement out of 10. It's like, how intense is this feeling for you? Let's say that, the athlete that's going to do the race or whatever, like how intense is that for you out of 10, the nerves? Okay, it's 10 out of 10. So we start tapping on, my heart's racing, my legs are jittering, I can't focus, I'm like, can't feel the ground. We just talk about, maybe the physical symptoms at the start, and then we might bring in some of the feelings about what's going on. And as we kind of go down through these aspects and we're peeling that onion, as I mentioned, we might get back further and further into, old experiences that have happened, and then maybe core beliefs. And as the onion peels, what will happen is, as we bring in like as we uncover, I should say, different aspects, and we regulate that emotion that's related to them, that, it's like, oh, I'm really nervous because if I've spent, like, I have Olympic athletes, right? Like an Olympic athlete standing at the gate, they're preparing to do the race, and then they start, like, they're freaking out. It's like, what's going on? And they're telling themselves, this is 4 years of thousands and thousands of dollars, so many hours of blood, sweat, and tears, relationships that ended, all the things that they've given up, and that's all racing through unconsciously in their mind as they're going through this. So as we tap, we start to bring down the stress response, and that number will often go from 10, it will go down a little bit, or it can jump from 10 to 0. But usually it's like, 10, it'll get a bit lower, and then you'll peel back a layer and go, oh, it's actually, oh, well, remember the last Olympics where you got to this point and you were also in the medal run, and then you had that big spill, right? And it's like, obviously, when I'm working with Olympic athletes, we have definitely deconstructed these old memories before we're at the Olympic gate on the final run again. But that, like that's the idea, is that, like you're kind of peeling those layers. And as you do, as the different aspects kind of regulate and release and the stress response changes, then the subjective units of distress starts to come down. So the stress or the intensity of the nerves will start to relax a little bit. The body will become calm, the heart rate change, and then you start to, you see your physical changes and your emotional changes at the same time.
Yeah. And if it goes the other way,
like if the
10,
number goes up,
just higher. Yep.
Yeah, sometimes it can. Usually it will come down first, but sometimes when we peel back that first layer, then we hit the jackpot. It's like, whoa, okay, we thought it was about the nerves, but actually what you're really afraid of is the judgment, right? Or the humiliation, because halfway down you spilled, you lost a ski, and then, there was this absolute humiliation in front of the international community or whatever. It's like, as you kind of hit that, you're like, that memory pops into your head. All of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's 13 out of 10.
Yeah.
One of my clients once said to me, she's like, it's approximately 200,000. I'm like, okay, hi, I got it. But that 200,000 out of 10 came back to a 5 in just one round of tapping, because we hit the correct aspect, the aspect that was there, the memory or the feeling or the thing that she was telling herself, that will come down really quickly. Yeah. So, it's really, sometimes it will go higher before it goes lower. Not often. Sometimes it gets stuck. It's really the only time EFT doesn't work is when someone is in like psychological reversal, when maybe it serves them to stay in this stuck place. And you just have to work out how is it serving them, or what are they really afraid of, and then it will reverse and they can bring it down. Or the other reason is just, it's really the same reason, is just that you haven't quite uncovered, maybe they don't feel safe enough talking yet, or there's more going on for them they haven't actually told you about, that maybe they've got embarrassment about that part that they haven't said it. So there's kind of still, it's like a hidden aspect. That's the only reason it gets stuck. It's like there's something else there that needs to be acknowledged before that intense number can come down.
Yeah. How do we start this process? You said before it's the inquiry, which I really love, and holding that space for ourselves. That's where we start.
Yeah. Look, what I would start with is like, just ask yourself how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Start with how you're feeling. Just make it really simple and just start tapping on that. But be honest with yourself, It's like, how are you really feeling? Okay, I'm actually really angry, or I'm resentful, or I'm ashamed, or I'm guilty, or I'm sad, or frustrated, or whatever it is. And just start to just acknowledge what's there and tap at the same time. Yeah, just start with that. Just start. Yeah. Or, like think about the goal that you've got, like whatever it is, whether it's a physical one or a performance related, or, like any whatever up level you're looking for, identify what that is, and then start to just ask yourself, like, well, how do I really feel about it? One part of me is really excited, and the other part's fucking terrified that I'm going to fail. It's like, okay, then we go with that. We talk about the terror and the fear of failing. And as you get deeper into that, your subconscious mind will show you all those old experiences, that are related to that. As you take care of them, present physical feelings will change in your body, because your future is really being created from your present like your present vibration, your present thinking.
Yes.
Belief. The future is actually created in the now, right? However, what's happening for us right now is so based on our past. It's so based on unconsciously, subconsciously, what is happening in our minds. So unless you bring in some awareness, some consciousness to what's happening, then you'll just be on autopilot. So if you want things to stay the same, don't go on a line of inquiry. Don't start digging. Don't start asking yourself questions. Don't get more conscious about, or acknowledge that you even have feelings. Then just keep going if you want things to stay the same. But if you want things to change in any way, if they improve or open up to more love, or for your body to be in a more healthy expression, or to win the race, or have a higher performance from your body, or a better recovery rate, then just start inquiring. okay, what's going on? How do I really feel about this? And where does that actually come from?
Yeah. The power is with you.
Always. Mm-hmm.
Oh, KJ, I could go on a million rabbit holes with you.
I know, me too. Let's do it again.
Let's do this
EFT
again. If people want to learn more about the work that you do or more about tapping in general, where can they find you and stuff?
I have a little hidey hole on the internet, kristajane.com. I'm not on social media. Yeah, but if you jump on my mailing list, which is you can either send me an email at krista@kristajane.com or jump on the mailing list on my website. That is the best way to find out about anything that's kind of coming up. I run different programs and retreats. I work one-on-one with people. You can find that on the website, but the mailing list is where all the new information comes out when it's ready.
It's where it's at. KJ, I normally like to finish with a question. I feel like the question I have has been answered 100-fold, which was how can listeners can incorporate this straight away. If we have answered that question, is there anything that you would really love people to know right now that maybe we haven't covered yet?
Okay, well, the thing that I want to say is that you're an absolute ball of human potential, and that whatever you're feeling limited by in your life is totally changeable. Like maybe right now you don't feel like you can change the situation, but if you change the way you feel about the situation, then the situation can change. And it just excites the living heck out of me that each and every person just has so much potential that's untapped. And the more awareness you bring into who you are and what's really going on for you, the greater freedom and potential you will create for yourself.
I bloody love you. This has been awesome. AJ, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks so much.
That was Krista Jane Smith on all things EFT, and she's so incredible. And I urge you, if this is something that you want to dive deeper into, get in touch with KJ, because she has helped me, as I've said 1,000 times already, but she's had such a profound impact on my life and the way I see situations. But also, this is such an incredible tool to just, have in your back pocket, right? And it comes out when you need it. So get in touch with KJ if you want to be diving deeper into this. I'll have all the links in the show notes, and I'll also put in there some resources for you as well to look deeper into the science behind EFT. If you love this episode, I would so appreciate you sharing this with your friends and family, or anyone that you believe would really benefit from hearing this extraordinary information today. As always, I truly appreciate you listening into this podcast today. If you would love to give back, then leaving a review for the podcast is always a really great way to help me grow this podcast and get into the ears of people just like you who want to hear this incredible information as well. Thanks again. Have the best day, week, month, and year. Stay awesome, and I'll catch you next time.